It's getting cold.
You want me to start a fire?
Hey guys.
Hello, hello, hello. Who said it?
How is everybody tonight? Trying to give everybody a minute to join us. So we are going to be talking about some natural homeopathic medicines. Well, history really. And then we're going to talk crystals and stones for a bit. Some different ones that I just feel are in need of being brought out to the surface again, especially for some people around me recently. In my life. I've always been a big believer in the stones and crystals. And I have slacked off using them, but at the same time, not so much because I do use them. I just it's not as in your face using them as it used to be. Yeah, Pam, I wasn't on last week. I've been so tired. We've been doing so much. We got hit with that freak storm. All this stuff was going on around here, and I just I couldn't do it. It's almost harvest time again, so I'm gonna be scarce soon again anyway. About another week and a half maybe. And harvest starts, so we got that really bad freak snowstorm up here. 6 inches we got, and real drastic cold. It was ridiculously cold for this time of year.
Do you see how many pieces I turned one piece into?
There is a lot of crop damage, not just for my industry, but I mean agriculturally. It was pretty devastating. Oh yeah. All of the wildfires are outside of my valley and quite a distance away. So, oh, hey, TLO, how are you? How are things going? Always a pleasure when you were able to join us. Are you walking home or are you already home? Oh, I'm sure. She usually doesn't miss a show if she catches the announcement. Oh, night off. Special. You don't get many of those. What'd you do with your night off, bro? Anything cool? Anything special? Just hole up in your house? That's what I do on my days off. I hole up at my house. I don't want to go anywhere either. But it's not that easy. Wish it was. All right. Have you seen the new one? Or is it out yet? I don't know. I don't really keep up with too much of that because I don't have a television. So, we don't even own one, remember? I try to keep up with stuff, but I don't always get to, and unless I'm specifically researching it. Now, guys, not out yet, okay. Well, I assume if he just brushed up on the old one, he intends to watch the new one. That's why you brush up on the old one. Yeah. Okay. It's all the way down. So, one of the things that I didn't put on there that we were going to be talking about tonight. Oh, hey, you know what, Pam? Could you do me a favor? Could you put up the link to the YouTube for me to what you're listening to right now, like the live link that you're listening to, or any of you that are using the YouTube? I just want to send it out to other people. So, one of the things that I didn't put on the list of things that I was going to bring up tonight because, well, I don't always say everything I plan on talking about, but It is something that I have talked about quite often on my show. I haven't recently, but it was brought up today. It was a good movie, TLO. It was. So something that was brought up to my attention today, and I hadn't talked about it in a while, but Fukushima, y'all, it's still there. It's still leaking radiation into the ocean. Two cores are still just slowly melting away down into the Earth's mantle further and further and further. That's all still happening. I just wanted to remind people. Oh man, it won't let me it won't let me copy and paste the link. That's crap.
Because if you do that, then more people listen to the show and more people get the truth.
They can't, Pam. I don't know if you were following Fukushima when it started. I really wish Scarlett was here, because Scarlett and I were pretty deep into this Fukushima stuff, and she specifically knows the radiation molecule number or whatever it is that's assigned to Fukushima. And she knows that part of the information that was like her specialty in studying when we were investigating and studying it hard. But what we know is the story's changed a lot over 8 years. You know, Fukushima happened in 2011. I do want to remind people of that. You know, it was only 2011, guys, only 2011. Things that still make me nervous about Fukushima. There are differences between Chernobyl and Fukushima. Fukushima, we were told when it happened, was 3 times worse, 3 times worse than Chernobyl ever dreamed of being. At least that's what we were told immediately. Now, the nuclear reactors that I speak of that are burning into the mantle of the Earth, we were told about them in the very, very early stages of the Fukushima disaster and tragedy happening. They kind of glossed over and have kind of like put that on a sideline and a side note because they like the fact that we've pretty much forgotten about it. But what you got to remember, my dear Pam, is these nuclear reactors literally melted through a floor designed to hold them of 25-inch or thicker concrete with iron and steel. But the earthquake, the tsunami, everything that happened, it cracked the floor. And once the floor cracked, it was weak. Once the weakness was found and the damage was done to the nuclear reactors that was done, which is basically what happened, was they were overheating. They weren't able to get cool. And thus, boom, they melted directly through the floor. It was just one originally, and then by the end of it, it was two. Many people will tell you that this is a hoax, that it didn't happen. It did happen. It happened in 2011. the Japanese government admitted it. They apologized on a national level for what was happening. Basically apologizing for the fact that they knew that what had just happened was going to basically ruin and destroy all of humanity at some point or another. They just didn't know when. And no, that's not fear mongering. That's not crazy talk. That's realistic, guys. One nuclear reactor in the Earth's mantle slowly burning is bad enough, but two in the Earth's mantle uh, is eventually they're going to make it to the center of the Earth or meet each other, or just come to a place where they can't do anything else, upon which point they will explode. And that will be a nuclear explosion from the inside out. And I'm not really sure what does and doesn't survive that. I'm not sure that our planet survives that. I'm not sure that it doesn't blow our planet into a bunch of tiny pieces or just big hunks that separate off. I don't know. And if it does blow us apart into big chunks, that is a possibility. That is one of the theories. Three big chunks specifically has been the theory thrown around. And again, I don't know what that does, like, on an astronomical level. Like, I don't know if our gravity stays in place. I don't know if we don't just go spinning off into space. I can't. These are all questions I can't answer, and nobody can, unfortunately. There are no answers for this. There's no playbook for this. There's no way to know how to fix this. There is no fixing this. Many people will tell you that they retrieved these nuclear reactors and that it's no longer an issue. Well, how? How did they retrieve them? They didn't even know where they really were, and they couldn't retrieve them before they melted through the floor and went into the Earth's mantle to begin with. They couldn't get close enough to do anything to stop it. Their robots that they had specifically made for these incidents couldn't do the jobs. There was a lot of crazy things with Fukushima. Another one of the problems Scarlett and I have is about 2 to 3 years ago, they started talking about selling trees and things out of Fukushima for parks and recreation and things of this nature. And we were just like lividly like, what in the hell are they thinking? These trees are all radiated. And here they are like, oh, it's fine. And talking about how they're ready to like move people in, that the radiation levels are so low. Well, somebody's lying. Somebody's lying somewhere, because if this was truly, as bad as you first said it was, which I have no doubt that it was, and now you're trying to make it less bad because, well, you don't want to cause panic. It could be Pam. You're talking about people being able to move in. Dude, we can't even move people into Chernobyl yet. And Chernobyl was so long ago. And those radiation levels are still out of control, with still no designated idea of when we could again habitate Chernobyl or the surrounding area. So getting me to believe that these radiation levels are okay for people to be in now in Fukushima for a incident and tragedy deemed 3 times worse than Chernobyl, somebody's lying. Somebody is lying out there, liar hole somewhere out there, to the media, to everyone, to you, to me, to everyone. We've seen radiation come through. We're seeing radiation showing up on our California shorelines and our Florida shore coastlines. Our fish are showing up eradicated. We've already had signs and symptoms. Um, Sea kelp, fortunately, does filter out and eradicate radiation. However, I don't know if there's enough seaweed in all of that sea to dissipate all of this radiation that has been leaking now for, you know, 9 years, guys. Pretty much. Pretty much 9 years. And nobody talks about it anymore. Like, you don't even hear about it anymore. Like, nobody even brings it up. It's like not even a thing on the media anymore, like, at all. But it's still there. It's still happening. Things are still taking place over there. It's still not a safe environment. It's still leaking into the ocean. Yeah, like we still have the two cores, in the Earth's mantle. And, no, I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just trying to remind people of the realities that have happened that, over the years, we seem to have just kind of like brushed under the grass, so to speak, and, ignored it. Yes, Pam. Yeah, there have been a lot of things with the Fukushima thing. A lot of thyroid problems, believe it or not, um, and thyroid cancers and things of that nature associated with Fukushima. Fukushima. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I got booted. And just, I guess, so everybody knows, there's some like Facebook glitch, and it's saying like that you can't see us on Facebook or whatever, but apparently it's working normally, and you can still. Yes. Yeah, StreamYard likes to do that. So, um, yeah. And Scarlett says she's going to be joining us in a bit. Um, but that Fukushima thing, it came up today in general conversation with somebody, and so I thought, you know what, I should talk about it tonight. Haven't talked about it in a little while, so let's just remind everybody. It's just your friendly reminder from me. I made a promise a long time ago that I would not stop talking about Fukushima, um, because it was the end. It's gonna be the end of humanity as we know it, and apparently it didn't come before the rest of the calamities. So who knows? I don't know, but I vowed I wouldn't stop talking about it, and I haven't. I don't talk about it like I did before. I used to talk about it on every single show. It had at least a 15 or 20-minute slot of every show, and I have gone off of that, but I felt the need to bring it back up tonight because I think we forget stuff, and 2011, 9 years of this. And nobody talks about it. Nobody brings it up anymore. It's, hush hush. And I just think, we need to remember, guys. We need to remember. Um, so on to bigger and better things. We are again going to talk about some stuff here. So let's talk about contemporary folk medicine and the new concept of it. Now, one of the people that contributed to the book that I'm reading was a minister, and he specifically had said, "I'm not a physician. I'm just an everyday person." But this is how we can connect with remedies that have no actual direct lineage to medicine or research, but come from the experiences of individuals and everyday people. It's perhaps the very essence of the book that I'm reading. It's kind of like the public backyard fence, where sympathetic neighbors exchange experiences. It's remedies, person to person communication, taken in vain as the words of a neighbor or a friend. This information, whether you read it in a book or you experience it, should not be dismissed as just talking, because if you wanted to select a doctor, you'd probably talk to the neighbors and see who they recommended. So they're not trained medical critics, they're just everyday people. But sometimes that is the perfect qualification. No axe to grind. We also should stop believing that everyday people can't discover or rediscover simple remedies that might work wonders for many. For one thing, as described in the medical section breakthrough of common people, and it's happened many times throughout history, there are more people living today than ever before. They have more education. They have greater access to all sorts of foods, herbs, vitamins. And there's no good reason why we aren't listening now. We should actually be listening more often than we are. Now, another reason that personal antidotes, as people like to call them, are worth giving some attention, though not saying that you have to totally believe anything, is that when people try remedies, they rarely ever do so in a random fashion. A person with a skin rash doesn't decide to plunge his arm into a bowl of potato salad on the off chance that it's going to help him. He might remember reading that zinc has been used successfully by doctors to treat many skin conditions and decide that zinc is worth trying for his own case, which many have done with great success. He might try a B complex vitamin for a nervous condition because he knows that sometimes some nervous symptoms stem from vitamin deficiencies. Again, many have done just that, finding success after medical treatment had failed. So, someone might remember that her grandmother used buttermilk for her complexion, thus resurrecting an old folk remedy. Putting this together, you see why natural remedies might appear to be a hit or miss proposition. Very few people use them with their eyes closed. There frequently there is frequently a very big wealth of information and experience underlying free-form choice. So, if you're wondering how we come into possession of remedies, normally passed along only to family and friends, some come from researching, some from other investigations, medical and non medical, but they mostly come from editorial resources and prevention magazines. The magazine publishes news about health drawn from reputable research. There's a department in the magazine that is quite different, known simply as the mailbag. It's a popular department. It served for many years as a kind of mass communication friendly get together where personal experiences are shared. It's one of the few places, in fact, where people can hear the kind of stories and tips that all of us once learned as part of family heritage. So, in addition to these unsolicited letters, Prevention has received many thousands of responses to informal surveys on various aspects of health and healing. From the vast number of first person experiences, they carefully selected for inclusion within the book I'm reading. And that seems to be the most representative common experience with most interesting and most sensible out of all of their things. Safety being prime consideration. Um, they do try to rule out any remedies that are pose significant risk to the average person. However, medical consultation should always guide treatment of any serious conditions. It's nothing is absolutely safe. Possibilities of allergic or other adverse reactions on any new remedy should be approached slowly using caution and common sense. Um, Now, let's look at the relationship to folk medicine. As we know it, it's for the most part actually historical folk medicine. In contrast, it presents in the book what might be called contemporary or modern folk medicine. Unlike historical tradition presented in many herbal books, uh, what I'm reading actually is reporting on what was being used in those days by contemporary people and in their own words. So, some of them may be traditional remedies when they seem sensible and safe. And they're older remedies. They reflect a certain amount of outmoded mystical belief and erroneous ideas about health and bodily functions. Today's home remedies reflect tenor of our own time. regard for good nutrition, good living habits, good medical care, appreciation of the importance of individual differences, safety in all remedies, medical and non-medical, convenience. They also reflect our refusal to believe in either infallible cures or pronouncements that nothing can be done. All in all, I'd say it's working on a very healthy attitude. Now, I'm going to go over this because we have some newer listeners, and I don't expect them to pop in or say anything, but oh no. Sorry guys, sorry. I still need to get this YouTube link here. Okay, let's try this. Sorry, give me just a second here. I'm only one person, guys. I gotta type it all out because it's not letting me copy it like a pain in the butt. Oh, wait. Holy crap. Okay. There. That should be correct now. I hope that sends them to the right place. It doesn't. Are you serious? That's crap. Here, just do this. Ah, stop that. Stop. I'm trying to share the info so a new listener can come listen.
Was this small enough?
All right. Now, sorry. I am back. Hey, Mto. Sorry, Mr. Entrance. Yeah, when I type it in, for somebody to link, it says something went wrong, Pam. It's weird. So I just sent her to the Freedom Revolution page. Hopefully she'll be able to hear me from there. But yeah. So we were just starting to go over, as I was saying. We have some new listeners, and it's just important information. And the more I can go over it with you guys, the more the information is circulated. So, a quote one of the quotes from the physician Paracelsus in 1520. I went not only to doctors, but also to barbers, bath keepers, learned physicians, women, and magicians who pursue the art of healing. I went to alchemists, to monasteries, to nobles and common folk, to the experts and the simple. Now, folk medicine It's one of the oldest forms of healing. Simple analysis, it means medicine of folks, medicine of the average people, as opposed to medicine of professional healers. Obviously, average people were healing themselves and their families long before there existed in any society any specialized role as a healer. That first caveman that scraped his thumb didn't open his mouth and call for a doctor or even a witch doctor. He howled and to pop his thumb into two actions that would relieve his pain and probably facilitate healing. So when you think about folk medicine, you should think about herbal medicine, but they're not actually the same, and they shouldn't be confused as such. Herbal healing is a facet of folk medicine tradition, but so is psychic healing, massage, diet therapy, spiritualism, hygienic practices, even simple surgical technique. Folk medicine consists of whatever works, or more to the point, whatever appears to work. It's also referred to as pragmatic, practical, empirical, or eclectic medicine. We're going to call it empirical medicine. Modern folk medicine, to understand it now, you have to understand its past. Because in folk medicine, more than any other branch of healing out there, the past is the present and the present is the past. Let's look at the roots, the history, basic products, techniques that have been used for healing, animal, vegetable, mineral products, including modern pharmaceutical derivatives and synthetics. Surgery, touching, manipulation, mechanically, influencing mind, changing habits of patients, almost eternally constituted healing environments. However great we perceive the chasm between ancient and modern medicine, truth is, both rely on the same basic components. Fundamentally, distinguishing folk healers from physicians is a difference of philosophical approach. And that is all. Two primary modes of thought: empiricism and rationality. Empiricism is a search for knowledge based on the practical experience rather than principles. Rationalism is the search for knowledge based on established laws and principles rather than on what is directly perceived in front of them. All the sciences, including medicine, can be approached from either perspective. Dominant approach to medicine now, currently, rationalism. There are many modern day holistic practitioners, including almost all current folk healers, that opt for empirical perspectives. Yes. Yes. So they do and war very quickly off the medicine healers. They've also painted them to be very crazy in our modern society. They've done that on purpose. Because if we lose our ability to naturally heal ourselves, well, we lost part of that ability the moment that we allowed them to separate us enough from the creator that it separated us from our ability to understand the things around us, the plants, the energies. When we lost connection with that is when we really truly began losing connection with the natural healing abilities. So, now, there were times in history of medicine specifically that empirical approach was dominant, especially in the birth of healing arts and the empirical perspective being dominant simply because there were no established principles of health or disease. I gotta give me just a second here. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. I don't want that right now. It's too many. Okay, thank you. Uh, there we go. There we are. Now I send her the direct link. She should be able to go. Oh, interesting. Says that the show's unavailable there. Wow. Interesting. Says that it's been deleted or is just unavailable. Interesting. You know, when it does this to me. I hate that I don't know how to share, how to listen to the show. That's bunk. Other than like how to get people to call in. Oh, I wonder. Well, it doesn't help if they can't see it already. So yeah. Um. So back to what we were talking about. Um. Now, the early approach to medicine, kind of primitive society. They called it ethnomedicine. Ethnomedical approaches various societies, similar to what we think of as folk medicine. Empirical practices, habits, health, lore, passed by word of mouth, generation to generation. There were few apparent guiding principles to ethnomedicines of different primitive cultures, limited communication from society to society, and many of the same approaches were found in unrelated cultures. There's also very specific similarities. Licorice, for instance, was esteemed as a healing herb among Egyptians. It was even found in great quantity in 3,000-year-old tomb of King Tut. Licorice was favored also by the ancient Chinese and is frequently mentioned in herbal books printed by them around the year 3000 BC. The papyrus Ebers, an Egyptian scroll written in 200 BC, mentions medicinal use of herbs: myrrh, cumin, peppermint, caraway, fennel, all of which were also used by ancient European tribes and still used today. Garlic, encapsulated with parsley by herbal companies to keep modern sophisticates' breath sweet, was used in Babylonian times in 3000 BC. Egyptians fed it to slaves building pyramids and soldiers going into battle to ensure maximum strength. Phoenicians and Vikings filled ships and stores with garlic cloves on long voyages. And besides herbalism, there were other practices that have a certain universality. Many cultures found that sweating often helped heal diseases. The Crow and Delaware Indians built sweat baths. So did the Hawaiians, thousands of miles away. Massage was considered an art in Burma, Hawaii, and in the Orient. Incisions to stimulate health were made by Fijians, American Indians, Africans, and Australians. Enemas were practiced by the ancient Greeks and by African tribes. However effective some of these practices may have been, they were in many cases centered around emotionalism and spiritualism. Most of the primitive cultures did not make an important distinction between spirit, mind, and body. They were therefore prone to treating the body by treating the mind and the spirit, and vice versa. Many cultures had shamans, witch doctors. They dealt more in the spiritual realm than the physical realm. Indeed, it is. Indeed, it is, Till. Now, these healer priests were found in Africa, in the East Indies, among all American Indian tribes, and in pre Christian Europe. Shamans would go into trances, wave magic objects over patients, mysteriously pluck offended objects out of patients' bodies, such as twigs or pebbles, chant, dance, and wail. A form of medical diagnosis often used was divination, an interpreting of the results of an arbitrary situation. Delaware Indians placed a patient's medicine in a container of warm water. If the medicine floated, the patient would be expected to recover. In Burma, a medical diviner wrote down numbers. Diviner wrote down numbers and words while he chanted and shook seeds. From the positions of seeds that spilled from the hand, he chose appropriate words, numbers, and determined your therapy. All of these being empirical, primitive, ethnomedicine, the basis of modern folk medicine. It's a recurrent philosophy that of vitalism. Vitalism is the belief that life is unique and that it possesses qualities that cannot be defined in simple terms of anatomy and physical makeup. Vitalism is inherent in modern holistic viewpoint and has been an important part of the empirical perception of medicine. Oh, what's the blue room? I don't even know what that is.
Okay, that's like the chat that exists on the website page when you go to freedomrevolutionnetwork.com/journey into freedom. When you would go there, there'd be a chat box, and that's where Pam has put that. That's what we called the blue room.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome, Red.
Hey, so now that you're here, we're going to revisit another topic
Ooh, which is?
because I was waiting for you.
I had to eat something, dude. I felt like I was about to fall out. Like, if I didn't
It's
eat
fine.
something, I was about to like lose it.
But I had already kind of talked about it, but I was waiting for you to come because I wanted to revisit it when you came back. So we brought it up again tonight because it came up actually in conversation today in my like normal everyday life. And so I thought it was a good time to, remind everyone
Hey, Pam. Hey, MGTOW.
About it. And I just like to involve you with this because it was our thing for a long time.
Right.
And well, that plus the fact that it's nice to have someone else who can say, you know what, Red, that did happen. It was happening. They did say this at one time. So we're going to revisit a topic that no one's talked about in a very long time. Frickin' Fukushima.
Right. That used to be our jam, y'all. Like we used to report, we did kind of give up on ourselves on that because we did say we were never going to stop reporting on it
Well,
weekly.
we have not, though.
I
We
mean,
have not
we
stopped
try to keep
reporting.
up, but I mean, it hasn't been weekly like we said, but you know what I mean. But we do keep at least, every once in a while comes back into our awareness, and then we bring it back up.
We have not stopped reporting on it. We just
Right.
don't do it as often. But things that I brought up again tonight was, I reminded everyone, A, it happened in 2011.
Right.
B, it's still leaking into the ocean.
Wow. So next year is going to be 10 years.
Yeah, it's still leaking into the ocean.
Correct. Still leaking into the ocean.
We haven't
They're
stopped the
still
leak.
selling, contaminated dirt and trees and everything, still. Ooh, it'd be interesting to do a of um quick search and see if there is any new news, because you remember the last few times we've done this on the air, Red,
And the biggest
that
thing
it's
that
had something new that we didn't know about, you know what I mean?
yeah, and the biggest thing that people seem to have forgotten about Fukushima or believe is a hoax is that we still have 2 nuclear cores, nuclear reactor cores slowly melting away in the mantle of the earth.
That's correct. And nobody's ever found those either. So that is an issue.
And the one thing that a lot of people don't remember, but I do remember this, I know you'll remember it too, when Japan literally apologized to the entire world because they know that they just destroyed the entire world.
True. True. Good point. Good point.
They did literally say, world, we're sorry because eventually we're going to be your destruction. We just don't know when.
Now, you know what, Pam? That thought literally just crossed my mind when Red said something reminding me about those cores going to the mantle of the earth, because I was like, what if the nuclear pressure could have caused that?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, dude. I've also heard a lot of people say that they retrieved those nuclear reactors out of the mantle, and that is a lie. They never retrieved them. They couldn't. There's no available way They
No, if
can't
they
do it
couldn't get into the building to get them out, you know what I mean?
to stop them
To
from
go
melting
in
through the
there.
floor to begin with, that was built specifically to hold them.
Right.
I'm just saying.
That's true. I mean, you
They're
can
making it.
get a robot inside.
Oh, the
There
robots, the
will be.
robots specifically designed for
Oh
these
shit.
specific
Here we go.
problems.
Here we go. So, much like last time in true fashion, here we go. September 11th, 2020. Fukushima
Mm.
have turned these grandparents into avid radiation testers. Takori Kobayashi lugs a garbage bag full of soil across a parking lot to an unmarked office. His wife, Tomoko, holds the door to a tiny workspace with lab equipment and computers set up. On the edge of Fukushima's former nuclear exclusion zone, this is a place the couple likes to call their grandma and grandpa lab. It started in the makeshift operation in the city of Minamisoma the year after the 2011 nuclear disaster, when people, mostly elderly, returned to the area and were worried about high radiation levels in their food and soil. We've
They
given
should
up
have
hope
been.
that we've given up hope that our children and grandchildren will come back to live here, Tomoko says, 67. Most young people decided to start lives somewhere else rather than return, not wanting to take the risk with radiation. But in order for them to come back and visit us, she continues, we know everything is safe. So we need to know everything is safe, so we test it all. Citizen science like this flourished in Fukushima after the nuclear disaster in 2011. How come we ain't heard about none of these people? See, we need to find some of these folks, G. When a tsunami triggered the explosions at the Daiichi nuclear power plant. The wind carried radioactive material for miles, covering whole towns and neighborhoods with dangerous yet invisible particles. For weeks after the disaster, information was scarce and trust in the Japanese government plummeted. And now, almost a decade later, wide arrays of residents have taken upon himself to collect radiation data from mothers worried about their kids to surfers monitoring beaches with Geiger counters in their homes to help regain a sense of control. Inside the lab, the Kobayashis pair to get to work. One measures out soil in a small container and the other starts labeling, so coordinated and practiced it's almost like a dance. They put the samples through a donated gamma counter, a big cylindrical machine that measures radioactive particles. Today they're testing soil from a nearby farm. A handful of other residents help run the lab, and throughout the years, experts from nearby universities have come to teach them all about the different equipment in radiation science. All the grandparents here are radiation professionals now, says Takanori 71 with a smile. Before the disaster, he was an accountant, and Tomoko helped run a nearby inn that has been in her family for generations. When the disaster happened, they were forced to evacuate for 5 years. But when they were allowed to come back home in 2016, they reopened the inn and learned everything they could about radiation. We never thought we'd be doing this. What normal person would expect this? Tomoko says with a chuckle. But anyone who faces this kind of situation has to become a scientist to survive. They ain't never lied. This is why we become scientists to survive here with vaccines and everything else. But anyway, continuing on. Takanori points to the colorful radiation maps of the area hanging on the wall. The couple made them along with a team of volunteers using donated Geiger counters and handheld devices used to measure radiation over the past few years as more neighborhoods reopened to the public. It's important for us to visualize the invisible, he says, so we needed to see it. Map shows that Fukushima's radiation levels are decreasing both because of natural decay particles and large-scale Japanese government decontamination efforts. But there are still a lot of hot spots, places where radiation is worryingly high. The authorities have tried to ease concerns, testing food in supermarkets and setting up radiation monitors in parks, outside train stations, or flashing along highways. But trust in the government is extremely low. See, and how come we haven't heard any about this? That they're being told about this basically almost like COVID temperature checking, to a level that is so widespread, but people still yet don't believe it, right? So they say many residents still say they feel best about collecting information themselves. One of the original citizen data operations in Fukushima is called SafeCast. Oh, we've never heard of them. The nonprofit organization formed in the immediate days after the disaster when it became clear that acute radiation information was not available. Safecast started building and distributing radiation monitors in Fukushima and then putting all the data online for public use. Now, nearly a decade later, Safecast has hundreds of devices in the area around the Daiichi nuclear plant, with dozens of local residents helping to take hundreds of readings a day. There's even one hanging in the Kobayashi's Inn. We found that simply allowing people to take measurements themselves and have a way to compare it to government data was really important for their peace of mind, for their sense of agency, says Asby Brown, the lead researcher at Safecast. Part of the reason people want to collect data themselves and compare it is because after more information became available, it was often contradictory. The United Nations and International Commission on Radiological Protection have published reports saying that radiation risks in Fukushima are low. Other organizations like Greenpeace dispute those findings. The Japanese government insists that the areas are being reopened are safe, but many quick to point out that the government raised the legal limit of radiation exposure in this part of Fukushima Prefecture after the disaster, meaning any of those areas wouldn't necessarily be considered safe in other parts of Japan or the world. Brown says giving the people and the ability to understand and collect their own data can help them ease their anxiety and make decisions based on their personal comfort. Some will look at the data and say, oh my God, I'm leaving. Brown says other people will say, oh, it's not as bad as I feared. And yet others will say, well, it's pretty bad, but at least I know what I'm facing and how hard it's going to be. The last option is how the Kobayashis felt when they came back to their neighborhood when it was reopened in 2016. By that point, Tomoko had gotten a Geiger counter. She remembers how empowering it felt to know and understand the reading. It was low enough for the pair, something they both felt comfortable with. I was so relieved, and I knew I could come home. But now Tomoko says the new invisible threat has her worried, coronavirus. She said a lot of the anxiety everyone's feeling now is how she felt back in 2011. She has stocked up the inn with cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer, and cloth face masks. Interesting how I made that connection just earlier, and they even said that. But the travel sector has plummeted during the pandemic. Radiation is a bit similar to the virus, she said, sitting at the kitchen table. It doesn't have any smell. You can't feel it. You can't see it. Tomoko says she is, of course, aware that the two are very different, but the parallels have been striking to her. She remembers back in March and April when she saw cities like London and New York and abandoned and empty on TV. It reminded her of the towns in Fukushima right after the disaster. It brought back a lot, she says. As long as you have a Geiger counter, you can detect radiation, but with the virus, there is no Geiger counter. Tomoko says, like many of us, she's eager for science to help find one. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm.
All I'm going to say is, we also know that Chernobyl's Geiger counters were made to only go to a certain level.
Well, yeah, but that level is ridiculously high because I have a personal Geiger counter, and that would tell you up to levels that would basically kill you. So, I mean, for the most part, but we don't know what they're being given either. I mean, the Safecast
That's what I'm
group
saying.
is interesting,
That's my point. Are they being given those types of Geiger counters that only go to a particular level that actually looks really low, that you're like, oh, it's super low, but it doesn't ever go past that level? That's what was going on in Chernobyl for a long time.
Right. So I went to the Safecast website, and supposedly they say that with the help of the global community, they've deployed 5,000 devices in 102 countries, with 5,000 contributing daily volunteers and 66,000 daily measurements.
Mm.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. I'm gonna have to look at this website now that I've found it because we never knew this thing existed. We never heard about this. And we were really big into Fukushima and looking at what was going on.
Uh-huh.
So that's interesting. And they say the free official Safecast app functions as a virtual Geiger counter, allowing you to see your location on the map while displaying radiation readings that have been taken nearby. So that's interesting. That's kind of cool because it lets you tap into their data network and it's a public domain designation, and the data is free for and open for anyone to use under any circumstance. And you don't have to you're not legally required to attribute the data back to them,
Right.
but they would like you to, they say. So
Hmm.
that's interesting. So they say you can either upload, download, or query to the safe data set with your own application via our API. So it'd be interesting to go see if we could get a web submission platform to see if we could get that data, because I would like to sit and look at it over the last 10 years to see what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I wrong?
No,
So that's interesting. So you've got people who realize, and we really didn't get to hear about any of the readings that were ever taken, but I just thought that was interesting. Supposedly there's going to be a film created about it. How two towns that host Fukushima recovered, what recovery looks like. So it's interesting that they actually had a new round of articles. They also said that radioactive soil plan casts a shadow over Fukushima village, and evacuation orders for the radioactive areas to be lifted without decontamination. And this was on August 27th. Isn't that interesting? So
Hmm.
they're going to let these folks go back now, geez.
Yep.
So they said the Japanese government is set to allow the lifting of evacuation orders for highly radioactive areas near the disaster-stricken Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station without decontamination work on the condition that residents will not resettle there. Interesting.
Hmm.
So they gave this plan to the Nuclear Regulation Authority, or NRA, for the so-called difficult to return zones where residents have remained evacuated since the onset of the disaster in 2011. The NRA gave consent to the government policy, paving ways for residents to enter areas outside the specified disaster reconstruction and revitalization base zones. They say supposedly that the government has heretofore made a condition for lifting the evacuation orders that radiation exposure doses will not exceed 20 millisieverts per year. Infrastructure necessary for daily lives is developed, and sufficient decontamination work is performed, and consultations are held with local bodies and residents. They previously designated parts of the difficult to return zones as disaster recovery bases, which lie in areas where local residents lived, and planned to lift the evacuation orders by 2023 after decontamination work and infrastructure development. Meanwhile, upon receiving a quest from a village of Leyte in Fukushima Prefecture, the government has also been examining under which situations evacuation directives can be lifted in areas outside of the disaster recovery base. At a regular meeting on August 26th, the government explained that its line of thinking that the evacuation orders can be listed on the conditions, including annual exposure radiation doses to be no more than 20 millisieverts. Residents' radiation exposure doses are controlled by using personal dosimeters, and information to curb radiation exposure is provided. The government then sought the NRA's opinion. In response, the nuclear watchdog body evaluated the government's new policy and offered a view that is in essence the same as the current conditions for lifting the nuclear evacuation orders. Upon receiving the NRA's stamp of approval, the government is set to hold a meeting of the Nuclear Emergency Response Headquarters and formally decide on the prerequisites for removing the evacuation orders in areas outside of the disaster recovery bases. Following this decision, municipal governments will look into whether to lift their evacuation orders for their local areas. In Litat Village, the Nagadoro district has been designated as a difficult to return zone, dividing the village into a disaster recovery base and an area not designated as such. The Leyte municipal government is planning to develop a disaster restoration park in roughly 9 square kilometer area that had few residents and falls outside of the disaster recovery base, and requested the central government to allow the village to lift the evacuation order for the area at the same time as for the disaster recovery base. So what the hell gives you? How can you even open that shit? Wouldn't all the same areas be the same? If it's in the same area, you know, how are you going to cut one side of the city off and say, oh, you can live over there, but you can't live over here? I mean, I don't know, man. Sounds sketchy. And what are they going to do to get rid of it? Wow.
Yeah.
Japan battles wild monkeys at site of nuclear meltdown. That's crazy. Oh, sunflowers bloomed on abandoned farmland. Lots of interesting information. But it is very interesting what's going on because I think people have forgot about it, but what the hell are we going to do? I mean, we haven't really thought about what this is doing to the ocean, what this is doing to you know, even the air. You know, they're dumping thousands, millions of gallons of nuclear radioactive water into the ocean and shit.
Yeah, like no big deal.
Right. Oh, 1 month ago. Interesting. Particles from Fukushima meltdown contain plutonium.
Mm,
Mm-hmm. That's not cool.
no.
They say that microscopic radioactive particles formed when the melting nuclear fuel interacted with the reactor's structural concrete.
Now, see, Pam, I'm with you on this because when Chernobyl happened, this is exactly what they told us. But now they want us to believe that somehow miraculously, um, it's like different because it's there. I don't get it.
Right? I think the reason why they can play that game is because Japan is an island. You see what I mean? So they can act like, oh, well, nobody else is really affected. And the people here really aren't affected. And nobody can go
Now,
in there to
one
go check it out.
things that was brought to my attention during this conversation today in my real life was the suggestion that perhaps maybe the radiation levels are lower because it's being carried away in the ocean.
Right. Right. Yeah, because they say that it like the water, they're dumping it out, you know, from the reactors because they have to use that ocean water to cool the reactors, right? And then they just dump that water right back in the ocean.
Yep.
So in theory, if you're dumping millions of gallons on it, right?
Right.
Eventually it would kind of dilute itself. It would be like, you know, putting a silver rod in, you know, water and then, you know, dumping it out. Like, you know, eventually, you know, some of that's going to leach out.
Right. Right.
So that's a good point.
Which was the point this person was bringing up. But you know, still, I don't know. I couldn't do it.
I know. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so when they find us on YouTube, how do they find us? Do they just go to Journey into Freedom or do they go to
No, they have to go to Freedom Revolution Network.
Find Freedom?
Then it should show that we're live currently and then they can watch the video. And as long as you titled it Journey into Freedom, that's what it'll be titled on YouTube. Whatever you put in the title box when you started, you know, StreamYards there is what will be on the video. If that makes sense. Well, and a lot of food we eat would be coming from that area. Lots of seafood comes from Japan. Um, and now you by 10 years later, you can't tell me that fucking radiation isn't everywhere in the ocean by now.
Right?
Like, I'm sorry, that shit just didn't stay in the Pacific. I bet you that shit's all up in the Arctic, all down in the Atlantic, literally everywhere.
Just saying.
And I've seen, like MGTOW and a few people saying I don't eat Pacific fish and, this or that. But 10 years later, that shit didn't just stay over there by Japan. Those particles didn't just settle and sit there. Like, them shits are everywhere at this point. Everywhere. And how many other nuclear, areas do we not know about all around the world that could be leaching into the ocean as well?
Right?
That's other shit we don't know about. But if I were a scientist and if I could go in a big boat and go test the water, I bet you I would find radioactive material in almost all the oceans. I would be surprised the ocean that didn't have it. Because, I mean, the millions and millions and millions, and at this point, trillions of gallons. Because I forget how many gallons of water at one point was being dumped on it per day from the ocean that then they have to dump right back out into the ocean, right? How many trillions or even quadrillions or even quintillions of gallons at this point? You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing that makes me very highly questionable about, like, how many goddamn gallons would that be? If it was millions daily 10 years ago, how many fucking gallons is it now? And all those gallons are in the ocean. Okay, and ocean water doesn't stay still, so where did all that shit go?
Further
So I
into the
honestly
ocean.
would assume, like, yeah, I would try as a rule not to eat Pacific fish if I knew it came from the Pacific, right? And especially like Japan or, Malaysia or the
Guys,
Philippines. But how could you guarantee that the whole
here's
earth
a
at this
little heads
point
up,
isn't
guys.
contaminated?
Here's a little heads up, guys. Hard to believe, I know. But all of our water systems connect.
Right.
Fresh water, salt water, they all eventually connect.
That's true. You ain't lying though, because how many of the lakes here in Minnesota go into the river system, and the rivers, there's certain rivers that even go all the way down to Red, like the North Platte and the North Platte River, I believe it is, or the South Platte goes all the way from here to goddamn Colorado, and from Colorado all the way down to like Texas or something. Like, think about that a body of water is connected like that. Small streams, creeks, all connect in and then eventually find its way down to like the Gulf.
Mm-hmm.
Or other ports, But that's a good point, Red, that we don't think about that always, that all the water really is connected. There really isn't a place, as far as oceans, that water couldn't get from one to another.
Right.
And I don't know how heavy these nuclear particles would be, but I don't think it would matter the way that water swirls and gets cycled back up to the top, and because, I mean, let's be honest. If I put, let's say like food coloring in water, right, and I swirl that shit around, I can't just pour it through like a coffee filter and the dye goes away. That shit's still there. Even if I could find a way to maybe filter the color out, that still doesn't mean that the chemical component still wouldn't be there. So we got to really think about that. And I mean, there's nothing we can really do at this point. Our issue when we came on the air about it, going on 6 years ago now, was that somebody needed to wake up about this. And we needed to take it seriously if our whole Earth was going to get destroyed. If nuclear can, raise our temperatures too, how do we know that extreme increase in nuclear activity isn't what's causing global warming? Or even increased volcanic or earthquake activity? Because, now we've got nuclear particles mixing with things that usually don't mix, and we don't know. These are answers, and no one wants to look into that. People would rather argue about masks and bullshit than really think about some issues like, what are these super mega fires? What's causing them? But nobody wants to even talk about that. See, this is the problem. They want us like distracted from real potential issues that we could try to solve problems with.
The
Yes,
Fukushima
correct.
thing,
The Mississippi River does drain into the Gulf of Mexico. That's why I use that as an example as well, because it's such a long, that's something that starts here in Minnesota, way up north, goes all the
right?
way through the state, goes through Missouri, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, then Louisiana, all the way out to the Gulf.
Yep. Hmm.
I think they maybe should have Geiger counters. It'd be interesting,
Whoa.
like I said, to figure out if you could find out if there is any, or how you quantify it in the ocean, because like a Geiger counter usually works with you like putting an item around it, or you'd have to have one of those gamma counters like that couple had to be able to process any samples.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know how that quite works, actually.
So yeah, and we were talking about this like way back when it happened, and we've been talking about it ever since Journey into Freedom started.
Right.
Which was still quite a few years after it actually happened, and already then we were getting so much controversy.
Yeah, I would say like 4 years after it happened is when we were doing it, and like I said, now we're coming on almost 10. So just kind of putting it in perspective, we've been talking about this for probably 6 years.
Right.
That's really crazy to think about.
And like to look at
Because
it.
my youngest was a baby when we first started being friends. She was maybe like 6 months old.
Right.
And she's 5 now. So in perspective, we had even started talking about this, like I would say at least a solid 2015.
Right.
And so, yeah, we did get a lot of flack about it. Why are you still talking about this? Why is this important? Why
Yep.
would we want to know? How come if the news isn't telling us, why would they want to know? Because we got a lot more
Why
pushback back
beating a
then
dead
too.
horse?
Well, yeah, reporting about these things than we kind of do now, because, to our benefit over the years, we got proven right by our predictions and what we were saying and how we laid things out. In the beginning, we had nothing to really go off of, so people didn't want to trust us. But as time went on and we kept saying that, the same things, we're really solid about what we believe in, people started realizing, oh, maybe they do know some things. Maybe they do kind of understand. But it took a long time to get to that point.
It did.
It really did. Not that people should trust what you say in the beginning right away, but we had some pretty compelling evidence, and we were just using regular sources.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just it, MGTOW. They do all this shit and then blame it on us. do Fukushima, like you said, BPO spill. Just fuck up the oceans. And then climate change is the reason for red tide. Maybe it's all the fucking oil and nuclear material in the water killing off all the wildlife. Ever think that, fucking smart fucks?
Right, right.
Maybe it's the fact that cruise ships are allowed to dump, just literal waste into the oceans too. Besides everybody else who just thinks we can pour shit in the ocean to make it go away.
I mean, if you took count of how many dead bodies are in that ocean.
I'm just saying. Dead body juice, dude, it's real.
All over. It's everywhere in the ocean.
All over the ocean. I'm just saying.
So technically, it's all over all the water.
Oh my god, no. Dead body juice. Gross. So gross, dude.
Well, get used to it.
I know, right? Well, science sometimes prevails, but not when they pervert science. Science this goes back to someone that we interviewed many years ago. His name is Gregory Garrett. He wrote a book called The Scientism
Greg.
Delusion. Right. The Scientism Delusion, which is a very good book that talks about how science was being turned into like a religion. And either you worship it or you're out. And that's the problem with quote unquote science lately, because, a lot of people have those stickers or sayings like, love is love, blah, 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 science is real, all this other shit. And they act like if you have any other dissenting opinion, that it cannot be correct. And since when is science like that? We weren't taught that. You were taught that if you had a theory, you tried to figure it out and see if it played out through your hypothesis. If it did, then it could hold up and try to challenge the scientific thought. Now, people like Forbes say, oh, unless scientific consensus says so, it can't be real. Well, that's not what we were taught when we were brought up through school learning about the scientific method and process. It was anything that could be repeated and done continuously could be used to challenge that idea in science. That's how we got to where we were. Yes. But somehow we lost that.
Well, rationalism. That's what happened. And it got stronger. And that's what happened.
Well, is it rationalism? Because, they're not rationalizing the fact that should we believe everything we're being told and we're not getting the whole picture? Because that doesn't sound very rational to me. Ignoring scientific method. That's the only thing that really bothers me. It's like we're just supposed to ignore all that and only believe what they tell us when they come on our TV screen or when they tell us through the internet, and then that's it. We can't challenge it. We can't have creative thoughts. Nothing.
Rationalism is a search for knowledge based on established laws and principles rather than on what is directly perceived.
Oh, right.
So yes, it is rational.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Interesting. See, because they rationalize the fact that, I don't have to think for myself. And I think that goes back to this woman who was, at this press conference in Minnesota, and it was about masks. But it was when the governor mandated masks, and she was like, I'm so glad the governor mandated masks for my business because then I don't have to think and I don't have to make the choice for myself.
Yeah.
I think that's really what's wrong with people, that somebody has to tell you it's okay now, or else you're not going to want to be involved because, number one, cancel culture if you're wrong. But I really do think that's a part of the hesitancy, is that people are just not getting it. They're just, but if you do believe in some of these ideas, you'll get canceled. I think people are afraid to want to have their own opinion. because they're afraid to be chastised either online or in real life or lose your job or whatever.
Yep.
It's fucked up. You know, you shouldn't have to worry about in 2020 something you said on the internet coming back to bite you in the ass at work.
Right.
Because I said that shit out of work hours. Like, what the fuck? But now they act like, oh, no, we can take you out of work. We have a social media policy. So now you even have to be mindful of what you say because you work for someone? Like, what
Yep.
the fuck? And people are just letting their First Amendment right just be all pissed on over. And they're like, oh, no, it's fine because, you know, they're your employer, so they can tell you what to do. Oh, so when they tell you to get on that fucking boxcar, you're going to do that shit too? See, this is where I have to draw the line. Like, my employer shouldn't be able to think for me or tell me how to feel or get involved with that process at all. It should just be as long as you didn't say it about the company during work or to another coworker, shouldn't be an issue.
Right.
Period. You know, there was a time where I remember that, you know, jobs would go up to bat for you and be like, did you say it during work hours? Did you say it at work? Did you use your device at work? You know, that type of shit. Because then otherwise they were like, oh, well, we can't do anything about what you do in your free time. Well, now they can.
Right.
Your free time really isn't free.
Right.
Right?
That is true.
Exactly. If you have your own opinion, then they win. Exactly. That's the whole point. They know they've won, but people don't realize that they've won. People just think, oh, well, I'm just, you know, I have the moral high ground.
Right.
That virtue signaling shit, G. Like,
Oh,
oh, because I believe this, I virtue signal higher than you. Therefore, I'm a better person. Like, I'm tired of that shit. Nobody's fucking opinion of something makes them a better person.
right.
Sorry, that just means you believe in something different than somebody else, but it does not fucking make you better than someone else. Like, people gotta stop getting that twisted. I don't know when we started making that the same thing, but we made it the same thing, and it's not the same thing.
Right.
I'm just saying. No, they even say if you feel or in your opinion, they're still gonna fucking fire you nowadays. It's not the way it used to be. Like, it literally, Red and I could be working somewhere. Oh, like right now. So, well, not with your boss, but you get what I'm saying. Maybe when you worked at Sonic or something, they could have called and been like, Red said this online, and it could be really upsetting to the community, and everybody's going to be very upset. And they could have fired her over that.
Oh,
And been
yeah.
like, oh no, that could be a danger to the company.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. They don't play that shit no more. It's ridiculous. I don't think it should be allowed. Like I said, I think you should be able to have your own opinion. But they don't want that shit no more.
For instance, one of the things that could probably get most people in trouble with their job, I guess I'm about to right now. So guys, I just got to bring it up. This little Crestone Colt's been all over the news.
Oh, right.
Freaking Hawaii kicked them out. Took them like less than a week to figure out their bullshit, and they were like,
That's because
hell to
Hawaiians are, you know what? The one thing I can say about Hawaiians is they are super in tune with the earth, and they are really in tune with spirituality. And so when they realized these people were here, and you know, this woman is saying that she's Pele, basically reborn, they weren't having it.
no.
You can't come there as, and I'm not trying to be rude right now, but you can't go there as a fucking white person and say, I am the reincarnation of a Hawaiian goddess, when Hawaiians have a very specific look. Nowadays it looks more Asian, but if you just look at, because, a lot of Japanese were brought there and all that, so there's a little bit more Asian mixing. But when you go look at Pacific Islanders, they look very different than every
Yeah.
other group.
Yeah.
So you can't just go there with her lily white ass and be like, "Oh, I'm Pele reincarnated."
Yeah, no.
That's
No, they're
not
not.
going to work. They don't play with that shit, especially when they just had the 2018 Kilauea eruption and those protests at Mauna Kea every day. Remember when I was sharing those protests every day and they were doing all their Hawaiian rituals and shit? No, a
I
lot of people have returned to their roots. And so they see beyond this, you know. No self-respecting Hawaiian would be like, "Oh yeah, she's Pele."
Yeah, no, no, no. And that was the wrong thing to do. So they've this is why they've been all over the news lately. They were all over the news because the Max thing, the most recent guy that they, drug away from the house, and Scarlett and I did some research with that and we reported on that.
We did.
His family would love to press charges, but unfortunately, Max is brainwashed, and he still supports the cult even through all of
What?
this. Yes,
Mm-mm.
yes, girl.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Unfortunate as shit. He still believes that they didn't do anything wrong to him.
Do anything wrong? Hold
Yeah.
up. Now, see, and okay, I can see how maybe people want to believe that because some of the quote unquote rumors can't necessarily be founded. But to some degree, they could. They claim that certain members of the group have had their checks stolen once they're in the group, and certain people are quote unquote missing within the group. Like, there's just a lot of coincidences that you could try to act like, oh, well, it's not related, but how do you have so much drama with this within this one group of people, and it's damn near a borderline like high crimes or mafia style shit with people ending up missing, pilfering their fucking money, you know what I mean, threats and all this other shit. Like, here's the deal. Regardless if you feel like they've done anything wrong or not, don't you think it's dangerous that they're getting followers by this woman saying she is the incarnation of Mother God on earth? Don't you think there's at least something morally wrong with that?
Mm.
That alone, you see what I mean? Fuck everything else you know about him, right? Just that fucking fact alone, that this woman is running around and getting people to believe in her, basically pray to her.
So
Don't you see that wrong even just in a little bit? That's what
so
I can't.
Hawaii
That fucks me up.
Hawaii clued in right away. And they were like, hell to the no, you gotta go. Okay?
Right.
They personally fucking escorted them with police to the fucking airport.
Yep, because they sat outside smudging their asses and chanting for a week straight. And the residents said, we will drive them out. We will make sure
Oh,
that they are not welcome here. And how
right.
they ended up getting them out was, in Hawaii, they have some absolutely ridiculous COVID-19 rules where if you travel to anywhere on the island, you must quarantine for 14 days. But if you are not a Hawaiian citizen, you see, you have to get your place approved by the Hawaiian government where you're staying to quarantine. And you
Right.
must give them your full itinerary of what you are there to be doing, how, what you would do until you're done, where you're staying, that you would stay inside, not even go outside on the lawn, to quarantine for 2 weeks, and then you could continue um,
Right.
with whatever you were doing there. But I don't think that they realized that that's how it worked down there. So as soon as somebody found out that they rented a place, they went and snitched to the local government.
Oh yeah.
That's how they ended up really getting them out, because the Hawaiian police at first didn't want to do anything, and they were sitting outside chanting with their sweetgrass, smudging these people. And the cops kind of thought it was a joke. Well, a smart citizen thought, oh, did they fucking register this place with the government that they were going to be quarantining here as non-residents of Hawaii? And no, they did not. So that's how that went down. Yeah, if you're under quarantine, Big Toe, and other quarantine rules, there's like no exercise, maybe like less than an hour. It's like basically like Australia type rules. It's honestly quite ridiculous and very, very restrictive, because they
Yeah.
believe as an island that they have to keep the virus off of their shores somehow, but yet you still allow flights in and out, and indefinitely from China. So how does that make sense?
No, I don't know. But Hawaii's chased them out. They made sure that they all got on a plane to San Francisco, California.
Did they really?
Yeah, they wouldn't let them go anywhere else. They tried to go to other islands and they were shut right the hell down. They were like, nope, not
Nope,
happening.
not approved. Yep. Well, and
So,
Hawaiians don't like any type of rifts like that outwardly.
right,
If they would have kept their mouths shut, and here's my thing. How are they becoming so well known?
right,
Isn't that a good question? Because I just feel like almost like, and I'm just gonna say it. I feel like in a way the government, the deep state, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is somehow, some way supporting them. Okay, because how did they go from just this quiet, unknown group, really, in Colorado? Maybe a few 100,000 followers, maybe less. Not that big of a movement, but big enough to fucking all over Hawaii, and Hawaiians knowing about it and people writing articles about it in Hawaii, to the goddamn Dr. Phil show. And that
okay,
means that
this is
they
what I was just
taped
getting to.
a
This
while
is
ago.
what I was just getting to. Is now they've been kicked out of Hawaii, which has now led to this Dr. Phil thing.
Right, but Dr. Phil is taped months in advance, so he knew about her months before this Hawaii shit.
Right.
So think about that this show is already scheduled months ago. And she sat down with Dr. Phil months ago.
Now,
And
wait,
they taped this fucking
wait.
show.
Monday's show on Dr. Phil, which I guess
Right.
is also his season premiere, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. How are they not going down like Waco? That's my whole point. Like, how are they allowed to exist somehow, doing all this supposed dirt, and even supposedly, like I said, pilfering money from people? People have went missing inside the group where nobody's investigating them, even the FBI. Nobody's telling them to calm down, or we're going to look into your actions, or we're going to take nothing. Nada. Oh, okay, good to know.
Right, right. Now, Monday's show, Mother God's sister is apparently the one doing the interview with Dr. Phil.
Oh, so she's going like appealing to Dr. Phil that these people are fucked up. There's something wrong with them.
Oh, yeah, she is like out now, apparently, like, my sister runs a cult and pretends to be God. Like, she is a drug addict. She needs help. Like,
Right. See, and this is where we're going to
she
get the
apparently has been
backstory.
completely disowned by her entire family.
Not
And
surprising.
then Tuesday, he is actually talking to Mother God and confronting her about everything, from the cat choking to the locking the kid in the closet to all of it.
She said they dumped old ladies. In chat, that they dumped old ladies in the mountains.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
2 years
Max,
ago.
it's not the first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's messed up when you really think about it. And, I don't, like I said, I'm just really surprised that
And
somebody
how
hasn't
did
tried to
we
come
become
and break them up.
how did we become aware of Love is One? We became aware of Love is One when a friend of mine and an acquaintance disappeared and the other one was murdered.
Right.
Right here in this small little place that I moved to get away from all this crazy shit.
Right.
And a person that I specifically talked to specifically did a freaking pendulum reading for her, telling her that she was going to die if she did not leave her current situation. Like, she was going to die. I had no idea that it meant like within the next 2 days.
Right.
So when we started looking into the death and disappearance of these people is when we learned about Love is One.
Right. True. That is true. But we didn't know what they were.
No.
We knew that this was something. What the hell did I call it? I had a name for it for a long time because we just didn't even know what it was, so we just called it um I forget what I had called it, but I had called it something. Like, but there's been this force, right? This strange force of evil or darkness. I don't know how you want to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
But some they've had this pull for quite a while, and now it's starting to become unraveled. And I would just hope that the greater community out around you guys will want to stand up against these people and not let them exist in your town, and just say no, we refuse to tolerate this.
Right.
We won't have you in our neighborhoods. We won't have you living here. But I'm sure it's a lot harder over there, especially if they're in the Baca. Are they in the Baca?
Yes. Oh, and guess what? Something that I found out.
Hmm.
Do you remember Jim's story?
Correct, yes.
It's his house that they live in.
Shut up. Please
Yeah.
stop.
No. Mm. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a history between me and Jim's story and me and Scarlett and Jim's story.
We've told this story on air recently. So if people have been around for those stories, you should remember who that individual is in the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting?
And how all them last messages I got from him were all weird and strange and bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Right. You see, because the reason why I ask too, are they in the Baca? Because that changes how, towns or cities or places, because some towns and cities can try to run these people out. But in
Mm-hmm.
the Baca, you can't do that
Right.
because it's not American soil. So the same rules don't apply. But people don't realize that. It'll be interesting to see what Dr. Phil has put together. I wonder if it's going to be one of those bullshit fluff episodes or if we actually get some real information because we'll know pretty quick.
I
It's
don't
being
know. He's like
familiar.
questioning her. He's like, what
Right,
do you
but
know about?
we've seen other Dr. Phil episodes, you know what I mean, that we know we've been waiting for, ready to watch, and then he ends up not even touching the real shit. You know what I mean? Like it only skirts around the surface and it never gets really into the deepness. So
Well,
I
in
hope.
the previews,
Mm-hmm.
it is showing him literally saying
Oh,
stuff
they're
to.
in between crystal. Oh. But it is a part of the POA. Yeah, if it's a part of the the association, then that's gonna still go under those Baca Grande non-American style rules. But continue, Red.
Yeah. I lost
Don't
track.
even don't engage, but continue. I don't understand. No, we were talking about Dr. Phil in the episode. You thought that
Right.
they were you thought Dr. Phil was gonna
Oh,
come crack on that.
well, in the previews, it has him saying stuff to her, such as, what kind of reward do you get out of torturing a cat? I want to know why you put the kid in the closet. That's straight up abuse. Um, saying that her behavior is narcissistic, abusive, alcoholic behavior, drug behavior, and it has her like answering him in a couple of them, like, like I was just punishing my cat. I was just putting the child in timeout. Like, and she's all like dressed up and has like a bow in her hair and shit.
See, and that's why I asked in that last video. Remember that video? And I was like, what is she on? Because I felt like something's just wrong. Something is just off about the whole group. And you could just feel it, which makes me concerned about the people who are following, because how can you not see that this is an illusion?
Yeah,
That's the only part that trips me out, is I just don't understand how no one else can't see that they're an illusion.
I
They're not
just don't
anything
see,
built off
especially
reality.
after the research that we've done with alcohol and spirits.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why they
Okay,
call alcohols even spirits. If you've noticed,
right.
alcohol, like liquor stores, wine and spirit stores.
I can't believe that anybody of a true divine nature partakes in hard spirits like that on a regular freaking basis, to the point that people are like, oh, she's divine because no human could ever drink that much.
Yeah, that's the
Well, they
part
could if they're
that,
killing their liver,
right.
or if they're doped up on something.
Wow. Wow. See, I can't even with that. And yeah, she's sick in the head. Sick in the head. And or cirrhosis of the liver. Because you can't, I'm sorry, regardless of how you feel, still a human being.
Right,
Still a human being, which means your body is humanly fallible.
right.
She's pulling off of some really intense energies to keep herself from falling apart, so to speak.
Well, what drew
And
the
that only lasts
attention
so long.
of the Hawaiians so quickly was the fact that she was like freely like out there in everyone's face that she was like Pele reincarnated, A, and B, that her plan was to bring 144,000 other people
Right. To the
that
island.
apparently believed she was Pele.
Right. And it's like, okay, how do you really think that you're going? Because, I know what she's referencing with the 144,000. And if people don't know, there's some people who believe that there are only 144,000 light workers, and all of these people will be brought together, and blah blah blah. But how do you get so deluded with grandiosity? Because that's what it's called, grandiose thoughts, when you think that you're divine. That you are
Delusions of
somehow
grandeur.
separating all the light workers of the earth. How could you have such an ego? How do you even think you're God unless that's some type of evil? Because I just don't even know how you wrap your head around to think that you're on that level.
Right.
Like, I get maybe influencing a few light workers or being able to pull in a few, okay, whatever. But to think you're like the ultimate supreme,
And
that's
then
what
to preach, and then to preach to everybody else that you have to let go of ego.
right. When you have the biggest ego of all, and if anybody even bruises your ego, you're ready to eviscerate them.
Right. Kill them.
Yes. Right. You know, that's what I don't understand. Like, and people somehow believe this. Like, that's the second thing that I'm just like, what the shit? Like, this is some good ass hypnotism, you know what I mean? This is some good ass hypnosis because these people are believing it. And I don't know if it's just the time we're in or what, but I just don't know how people could be like, oh yeah, that's happening. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, oh, and this guy is Father God. Yeah. But you know, he has tons of concubines, you know.
Well, but that's
But it's
okay
not
because he's really Lucifer, remember?
right. See what I mean? Like, what? This makes no damn sense. You know, and then what do they think they're, oh, love has won, but yet you go around hating everything and everybody? Like, how did love win?
Else.
Because you don't implore that at all in your teachings or
Right.
in your works.
And you want to say that, people are intolerant of your religion, but you're pretty intolerant of anybody else believing anything except that you're God.
Right? Like Mikto said, like, I bet you it is like that, though. I bet you it's just like craziness, just like complete chaos. But yet, at the same time, but then people are supposed to believe she's some like divine creature.
Well, through different articles and things that we've read,
Right.
we know that sleep is restricted.
Correct.
They're only allowed to sleep 3 to 4 hours a night.
Yeah, that's true.
As followers in the group.
Yeah.
Their meals are very limited. And if you remember how we met Jim originally, we met him at the food bank at
Right.
the church.
Right.
And,
True.
that's when he was all trying to talk us into coming and visiting his house and meeting these people.
Right. And how many recruiters in the community are there? I really truly wonder. I think there's a lot more than people even realize.
Oh, yeah, I think so too.
Mhm. I think a lot of people are in on it because basically these people have said, if you're not with us, you're against us. And if you're against us, you're not allowed to exist.
Right. She's even put videos out like,
That have said
basically,
that in pretty so
yeah,
many words. Yeah.
yeah, like she's gonna kill you if.
Right. And if you don't go along with, if you don't believe in them, if you don't believe in their mission, if you don't, it's really psychotic.
Actually, Toe, yes, that is kind of exactly how it's been described. Um, Well, you can judge for yourself. She's going to be on Dr. Phil.
Yeah, and I would like people to watch that. Oh, right. I'm just saying, I feel like that's what's happening. I really do feel like that's what's happening. Somebody, these people, this group, this network, whatever you want to call it, outside of just the inner nucleus, is gotten so many layers deep that it's just affecting just regular community members and everybody now. And I'm sure the town here pretty soon will see whose side who's on.
Right.
I don't think that can be hidden for much longer.
Right.
And that's when it gets very interesting because
Exactly.
a few of us are concerned that there could be even officials involved and not on the right side.
Yeah.
Then what do you do? You see, it becomes very much more complicated at that point.
Truth.
Because, right? You know what I mean? It just becomes dangerous, even. But this group can't exist how they are. They just can't. They can't.
Yes, Pam, it is. It absolutely is. And then you add meth into this
Not on
mixture.
cable. It's on regular TV. So as long as you even just have an antenna on a regular antenna TV, you
They're
should get
also
it on
doing it like from
on
the
your local
Phil.
CBS station. Will have it.
Yeah.
Maybe, depending on your area, you'd have to go out actually and look up your local TV guide and then see what channel. Because in some areas it'll come on Fox, some it'll come on ABC actually. So I should take that back and look into your local area and just see, Dr. Phil over the air TV and see what time it's on in your zip code.
And
But
you can also go to drphil.com, and I do believe you can just watch it right there.
I think you should be able to too, but that might be a day after it actually airs. But there might be some clips there now, like those
There
pre-interview
are
clips
clips
that you
there
were
now.
talking about. Yeah,
There are the
that
two
people could go
previews are
watch.
there. Yes.
Well, that's just it. It is a way to gain control of one's will and break their spirit. And it's really not even breaking their spirit. They want to take it because they need it for energy.
And then you add meth, which just aids and abets in the ability to limit the sleep and limit the food, because see, now they're on this drug that does that, and they want to do that without being forced to do it. So that just makes that easier. And now you give them hallucinogenic type drugs, and you throw them out on Crestone Mountain somewhere,
Right.
naked, with nothing,
Afraid, alone.
and say, figure it out. When you make it back, you make it back. Like one of their punishments, quote unquote, for a member, according to articles that we've read.
So it's allegedly.
Oh, and also research that was done by Peyton.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right.
Okay. For those that don't know Peyton was here for quite a few months doing a show.
He does the Up and Vanished podcast.
Up and Vanished, yes. And he was doing an episode on crystal, and it led him to
a series on crystal, because there was like 5 or 6, 7 episodes in the series.
Yes, it was a series on crystal and not just an episode. So, but that led him to Love Is One.
Right.
And there was quite a lot of information in there about it. So, according to that research, a punishment to members was to literally throw them out into what they called segregation row or something, which was just up in the woods in the middle of nowhere with nothing. And they were just cast out there and told, we'll be back for you when we think that you've paid your price. and then they got in trouble or something for that. So they put a tent out there.
Like
that's not
makes
livable at all.
Right.
But now there's a shelter, so nobody can say anything. And I mean, it's crazy. There are a lot of missing people linked with the cult, or the religious group.
I say they're a cult. Once you start saying, if you don't believe in what I believe in, you're
okay. Now,
against
see,
us.
technically, that's not what she has said. Technically, what she has said is, if you are to come to the light, you have to do it through her. There's no other way.
True.
Like, you have to come to her and bow before her, period, end of conversation, or you're not godly.
Correct. Right. Or you're not worthy.
Right.
So.
Oh, they tried to get teenagers. They tried to get kids. They tried to get anyone.
I'm sure they even tried to get families, and it's stuck all up in it.
Yeah.
The more of the community, the better. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Cult. I say it's a cult because once you have people who, as well as that, you start telling them, oh, you got to act this way to be around us. You got to do this or that to be around us. That's a cult. Once you start making other members okay with abuse of other members, also a cult. Okay, because only a cult would cover for people such as this when they're leaving vulnerable people out in the woods, out on the mountain. Shit's dangerous. You guys aren't by no like kid glove mountains and shit. You're all about by fucking 14ers that are dangerous as hell, that half of the experienced people trying to fuck with die, and then trying to leave somebody average out there. That ain't gonna work.
Okay. So, see, we are in complete agreement because Scarlett can even tell you, I've said very similar to the exact same thing. Like, my little thing that I say is, if you're a lion, you don't have to like walk around and tell people you're a lion. Like,
right, people
you just know that's a fucking lion.
Right.
Okay. And I'm sorry. I feel like if God is walking around on the earth, he doesn't got to walk around and say, I'm God. I've been reincarnated 5,000 million times. I've been this. I've been that. I've been this. I've been that. I've been mistreated. Nobody's listening to me. Wham, wham, wham. No, you're just going to know that's fucking God, and you're going to do the right shit.
Right. Because Jesus didn't do that shit the first time. Maybe a couple times he was like, I am, the Messiah, a couple times. But it wasn't like, oh, I am God, you must bow in front of me. Never was it that. Never was it that.
No, he always said he was the representation of his father.
Right. But never even acted like he could control that level on this earth. You know what I mean? So for somebody mortal to act that way is just ridiculous. It makes no damn sense. Like, I don't understand, but that's the interesting part about cults, is that they're able to get their victims to believe lies, untruth.
Some crazy ass shit.
Right?
Okay, and another thing, I'm sorry, hashtag for those who are new, I have some hashtags, okay? Hashtag I said what I said, hashtag sorry not sorry, hashtag not everyone's cup of tea. That being said, no one of a divine nature is drinking, smoking, and doing that many drugs and infecting this many innocent people and trying to tell me they are divine freaking being.
Nope. Nope. Not,
okay.
Not
now,
with hard drugs.
I am also not saying that divine beings, because I do strongly believe that we are not people having a divine experience. We are divine beings having a human experience. Okay. I firmly believe that. Now,
All right.
that being said, I'm not saying that we're all perfect. I'm not saying that we don't do a little drinking, a little smoking, a little craziness here and there, a couple of drugs.
Right.
Okay. There's still divinity
Right.
because in mistakes, you find divinity.
Right.
Okay. Now, when you are someone who deliberately basically wants to say that you make no mistakes, how are you growing? How are you ascending to divinity? Because everything I know of ascension and divinity is accepting the responsibility of the things that you have done.
Right.
How are you doing that when you're literally saying, I am God?
Right.
And how can you claim to be a divine person and do such shitty things to the people around you,
Right.
to your community? How can you supply drugs to your community and call yourself divine anythings
Right.
or religious anythings? And I'm not just like, oh, look, they're doing weed. There are weed churches, okay? There is weed religion. That's a real shitting thing,
Right.
okay? And I'm not down in it. Do you? Do you? You know, he gave to you all seed-bearing plants of the earth. Strongly believe that. Do what you do, homies. Okay? But they are not passing out some shit like MDT, mushrooms, acid, peyote, and some of these are used in religious circles, okay? Like peyote, for instance, ashwagandha, for instance, some mushrooms, for instance, but they are not using them in the proper way. They're dosing these people up. They're taking them up on a mountain. They're dumping them naked and telling them to figure it out. Tripped up, usually on it's DTM, right? Is that
DMT.
DMT?
Right.
That seems to be like their thing of choice, DMT.
Well, DMT is the God particle, right? And so it creates, when you take this, a loss of ego, right? And it makes you have ego death, right? Which is something that is
Right.
talked about in hallucinogenic and tripping type circles. And so I could see why this would be an effective drug to use, because you could put people basically through a religious experience just by smoking this
Oh, well, that's what she
and
claims she's
force
doing.
them into fear. Because I mean, I'm telling you, like, regular people shouldn't do this unless they're like super spiritually prepared and ready. So to put somebody who basically isn't that, you know what I mean, on this would probably fuck them up mentally.
Oh,
You know, I
yeah.
don't know if people know people who have tripped a lot or in a lot of groups, but there's a lot of like harm reduction groups, they're called, and shit, where people talk about getting stuck in like loops, you know, after they take these drugs, and they're just, some people have even been lost after taking drugs like that, where they never come back to themselves.
Right. And they're basically drugging them up with this, taking them up on the mountain, stripping them naked, and telling them, you know, if you're meant to survive, you will.
Right, MGTOW, next the purple blankets and the Kool-Aid come. Because I mean, that's basically what it's like. It's like Jones, like
Oh,
Heaven's Gate,
and don't
where, you know what
forget
I mean?
they
Like,
were in Hawaii to connect to the mothership.
oh Lord, please stop the shit.
Oh, I'm not gonna stop the shit because this is the shit rolling out of their liar holes. They're there, literally saying that they're there, and they're bringing the 144,000 to connect to the mothership. And that the only way that they can do this is on the sacred soil there in Cali through Mother God or Pele.
Do I even want to ask when the mothership's coming?
They didn't release that information. That's
Mm,
only for them and their followers. We're not worthy of
mm.
saying.
I wonder if even their followers know when it's coming, or is it like one of these things that it's like, we'll get a sign and then we'll let you know.
Right, yeah. I'm sure it's more like that.
Right? I don't
Just
know.
keep doing these drugs, keep making my drugs, keep having sex, and party
Yeah, or
on.
however they also make their money, you know what I mean? So then keep making us money, keep getting us,
Yes, Pam, it
power.
is. It is worse in the effects that it gives you. Because it's used.
You gotta be super spiritually in tune to use this shit. That's not for beginners. I mean, this is
No.
like acid times 10. You know what I mean? It's not something that should be used or thought about lightly. Um,
Right.
it's really hard to get a hold of too, but not that hard on like the West Coast. So I could see maybe how they have access to it. Um, but still, it's not worse as far as, oh, it's like meth or it's like heroin.
Oh my God,
Um,
no, Pam. It is nothing like Molly's. It's like a hallucinogenic
yeah,
times
see what I mean?
100.
It's like LSD or shrooms would be the closest, but it'd be like if LSD and shrooms could be like super strong and make you have a whole fucked up experience because people
Okay,
talk
now
about
wait.
like seeing
In the
aliens.
words of Pineapple Express, almost, if shrooms and LSD super strong got together and had a baby, that would be DMT.
See what I'm saying? That's how I feel because like it can make you, like I said, it can make you have a whole experience in a very short amount of time, but it doesn't last long either. Like if you
Good.
take a hit of DMT, the longest it'll last is maybe 20 or 30 minutes.
Right.
Maybe. And that's if you're lucky. So, I mean, it's very quick, but yet not. Some people can come out of it as quick as 2 minutes, but feel like their experience was like 2 years long. Like you're
Right.
talking to angels, you're talking to demons, you're talking to aliens. I've heard all different types of stories, y'all, when it comes to that. Like what you actually see during a DMT trip, what people experience. Some people have said, I figured out the universe, but I can't put it into words. You
Right.
know, some people have very profound experiences. Others have very scary ass experience. So it's very interesting. Oh,
It
interesting. I didn't know Molly had DMT in it, MGTOW. Thank you. Our resident street pharmacist here, MGTOW. Thank you, MGTOW.
right.
It's just good to know.
Right. So yeah, that is yeah, So they're gonna be on Dr. Phil, guys, and I had to share that because holy crap.
Yeah.
Now, there's a big part of me, it's like I gotta see this. I gotta know what this crazy woman's gonna say. How she's gonna defend herself.
Right.
Then there's another part of me that's like, holy crap, the exposure that they're getting by this. How many followers does this bring in?
That's what I mean. Does it backfire and then people actually want to be a part of it? Because they don't know enough about it. Like I said, is it going to be like one of these fluff interviews with Dr. Phil where he doesn't actually look that strong or he really doesn't like, come after them hard enough to where people are just like, oh, it's harmless. It's fine. Oh, this group seems normal. That's what I'm concerned of because he does that a lot. He's done that in the past, even with, like vaccine activists and things, you know, try to make them look like, the opposite is true. Like,
Right.
he could try to make the sister seem psychotic or meddling or something, I don't know.
Right.
I'm just concerned because these people seem to have everybody around them fooled. But I hope a show like this would even make people like CBI really think about how they're letting these people operate in their state.
Right.
Especially with like the animal abuse, or like I said, the pilfering of people's like social security checks, or shit like that. That's the stuff you can prove. The other shit, harder to prove. But that you could prove. You could at least try to investigate about it and then try to, I'm sure they could find something on a few of them.
Right.
Just saying. And then through that, open up a bigger investigation. I just don't see why that's not an option. I hope it is after this interview, though. Like I said, maybe they'll say enough in this interview that will then make them suspect.
There's actual video of them like abusing the animals. There's actual video apparently of them locking kids in closets and things.
When was the animal abuse, though? Was it after or before Trump made that a federal crime?
I don't know.
Because,
But
if it
she
was
is
before, they
on there.
might not be able to do anything. If it was after, then why wouldn't they?
She is
See what I
on
mean?
there doing what she calls reprimanding her cat and what everyone else calls abuse.
Right. How you gonna reprimand a cat? Has she
Oh,
ever
she's
met a
holding
cat?
it by the neck and shaking it, and
Lord. And it's like, have you ever met a cat? Because cats, I don't know if you've met a cat before, but cats usually can't be reprimanded.
yeah,
They kind of do what they want.
right.
I'm just saying. I just don't know too many people who have their cats controlled.
Mm,
Right? I'm just saying. Not like on command where you're like, cat, no. And the cat's like, okay. Mostly cats are like, nope, fuck you. I'm going to continue on.
Right. Actually, usually cats are like, "Oh, you said no, so I'm gonna do it twice as hard."
Right. I'm just going to be worse about it. See what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know. The fact that she even thought, but see, that again goes to her ego and thinking she's so much greater, so
Well,
much
and
more
then if you look
important
deeper
than
into
everything
that,
else, including beings.
now I don't know if they go into that in the interview, but what I have heard as like part of her like thing defense about this,
Mm.
is that she was reprimanding the cat and the followers, and from what I can gather from the screaming in the video, because sometimes it's super hard to understand their lives because she's just like screaming and screaming obscenities and craziness and jumping all over the place, and it's really hard to follow sometimes. But if what I was getting from that video when she did it, the reprimand of the cat was because the cat wasn't acknowledging her as the mother of all creation.
How's the
And
cat supposed to acknowledge her as the mother of all creation? What is it supposed
and
to do?
wasn't
Talk and say you're the mother of all creation? It's a fucking cat. Cats like groom themselves, eat, might meow, hiss, or bite you. That's all fucking cats do. What? How is the cat supposed to acknowledge you?
wasn't acknowledging her as the mother of all creation and wasn't giving her her due respect.
Wow. I'm with you, Migto. I want to see her do that to a bobcat too, because I feel like it will eat her face. That would not be allowed. Yeah, I'll be interested. You're gonna have to remind me.
Oh, it's not on stage anymore. She is doing like it's like Facebook Live or Zoom.
No, Pam's saying on stage from Dr. Phil during the
Yeah,
episode.
that's what I mean. It's not on stage live anymore with him.
Oh yeah. It's like at home because of COVID shit. I forgot
Yeah,
about that.
and even the audience now is virtual.
What?
Yeah,
These
you can go
virtual
on the Dr.
audiences I
Phil.
can't stand.
You can go onto the Dr. Phil site, drphil.com, and sign up to be part of the virtual audience.
Wow. Okay, so Monday. Let me go see. They don't tell you what the episode is about, which I thought was interesting. Because usually they tell you what the episode's about.
See, I'm with you again, MJ. It goes back to what we just said earlier. If you're a lion, you don't gotta fucking pronounce you're a fucking lion. Okay? If you're the mother of all creation, the animals are gonna know that you're God and they're gonna respect that. But obviously you're not because they don't. Just saying. So yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with that. Oh, hello. Sorry, I don't know what happened. It kind of like blacked out for a minute. And I think it's blocking Scarlet out. But I'm not 100%. Yeah, it did. See? I knew something was up.
What the shit? Why is there two of these open?
Yeah, now there's two of you.
I know. How do I get rid of myself?
Which one's the real you?
I don't know. Let's see. This one. But I guess Tuesday's episode is Mother God and her victims face off.
Right. And Monday is the one with her sister.
Right. Yep. I was just on
So,
drphil.com. So for those who want to see where the episode is and go look at the information for yourself, it is just straight up on drphil.com.
right.
And then drphil.com, you just scroll down because it's the new season and it says this week. Today's show, I believe my sister is a cult leader who claims she's Mother God.
Yep. Monday's show.
Chelsea, her sister Tara, and her mom Linda claim their beloved Amy is now allegedly a cult leader trying to change the world through natural healing methods. Chelsea has been writing to Dr. Phil for years because she says her sister Amy left the family, started calling herself Mother God, claims to do surgery with her hands, talk to dead people, and is so far gone she's already lost to her family.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
So I don't know if Amy's actually going to be on Monday's show or not.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it says that she is and the mother. So it sounds like mom and sister are on Monday, and then they have her
No,
on.
Amy's Mother God.
Oh, well then who's Linda and the other woman?
That would be her sister and mother.
Right. See what I'm saying? So it's sister and mom on Monday talking about how they've lost her.
Right.
Right. And then Tuesday is her facing off with whomever.
Right.
And, honestly, how dare them even put, like, oh, her victims, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's kind of fucked up. Oh,
I
followers and alleged victims face off.
Right.
Oh, shit, that's fucked up. See, do you know what, Dr. Phil? I'd be getting concerned about shit like that because it's like, why would you have followers and then people who are against her on the same show? You know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to do here? Like you said, it's going to end up somehow gaining them followers somehow.
Right.
That's the only thing I see it because, like I said, they're already pitting groups against each other. Like, oh, here's the followers. Oh, here's the mom. Like, I don't know. I just feel some type of way about it.
Well, the fact that the sister's been writing Dr. Phil about her for years.
That should say something in and of itself. Interesting that Dr. Phil would choose to do it now, like I said, because this would have been taped months ago for the upcoming new season.
Right.
And then, maybe they just taped it in the last few weeks, but it would have been planned months ago
Well,
to
the
be
way
done now.
that stuff is now, honestly,
They might be able
he
to do it a little bit quicker, you know what I mean? But I
and the
don't think
fact
it's
that
going to
they're
be
doing
based on the whole Hawaii thing, though. I don't think that's going to come into play. It'll be interesting, though, where she had the interview.
yeah,
Maybe she'll reference where she is in the interview, but it'll be interesting to see where she says she's at.
because to be honest, the way he's doing shit now through like the Zoom,
Right.
he could have like arranged this in the last like 4 days
True. That's true. It acted like it
and
was going to
just
be a part
upped
of
it
the new
because
season the whole time. Yeah, that could be. Because it is a new
Mhm.
season. So to be fair, it's a whole new cycle of shows. He hasn't been on with the new show since probably summertime.
Right, and
Maybe
could have
late May.
just thrown this together and just thrown it into the beginning of the season because of what a hot topic it is right now.
Correct. Now that could be. We're gonna have to see. But I think it's still gonna be too much of a
Because
coincidence
from the
that this is
clips that
being
I'm
put out all
seeing,
at the same time.
it seems like this was a pretty like rushed together.
But the way I see it though, I don't think it's a coincidence.
Right.
Regardless.
Oh, it's not. It definitely is not.
Right.
But the sister thing may have been recorded a while ago. That I would believe. But I think the actual thing with Mother God may have been way more recent than what we think.
You know what? I think you might agree. Well, I'm watching the clips right now.
Because that cat thing's pretty recent.
What?
That cat thing's pretty recent. She just did that in like the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Ooh. Yeah, maybe once they realized that she was doing some fucky shit, they decided to make it an episode like you said, because if I would have had an idea, if I was one of them producers and then I heard about it, I might pull that shit up and be like, remember when we talked to that crazy lady and her family? Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause sometimes you and I have pulled together shows quickly doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody would have known otherwise unless we told them.
Right.
Yeah, I just saw that clip. They do play a small clip, y'all, on Dr. Phil if you wait for it to load.
Yeah.
They will show you a little clip of what they're going to talk about. So also highly recommend. So, but yeah, Dr. Phil would have been on during COVID though, because Dr. Phil would have ended like last May, and then they take the summer off, and then they start in September again with new shows. So that it's just, we'll have to see.
Right.
We're gonna see it, you guys. We'll watch it, and then we're gonna talk about it, obviously. After we see both episodes.
Right.
And
Right.
what's going on. And everybody might see me sooner rather than later on the air due to the fact of a hurricane is on the way. So Sally is expected to become a hurricane on Monday while approaching the northern Gulf Coast. They're expecting hurricane conditions with strong winds, extremely dangerous, life-threatening surge, heavy, widespread, significant flash flooding. And I have a feeling because last storm ended up basically being nothing, I have a feeling this one's actually going to be something.
Right. Right.
Because that's usually how it works. The last one ain't shit, then this one's something. Because, in the Atlantic right now, we have Paulette, Tropical Depression Renee, Tropical Storm Sally, and Tropical Depression 20, with 3 other potential cyclonic formation chances in the Gulf and off the Cape Horn of Africa, besides Paulette, Renee, 20, and Sally. So there's a total, like I said, of 7 disturbances in the Atlantic right now. There's also Hurricane Tropical Storm Karina that's going towards the Baja Peninsula. It's not expected to be a tropical cyclone, but that's a lot of activity, you guys. And so, like I said, I will probably be on sooner rather than later talking about tropical storm than Hurricane Sally, of which they're talking about at least 15 to 20 inches of rain on New Orleans. And they cannot take that. They're saying that it believes that it's too determined to where the center is going to move, but users should not focus on that. An extremely dangerous and life-threatening storm surge is expected for areas outside the southeastern Louisiana hurricane and storm damage risk reduction system from Port Fourchon to the Alabama-Florida border, where a storm surge warning is in effect. Hurricane conditions are expected by late Monday within portions of the hurricane warning area from Morgan City, Louisiana to the Mississippi-Alabama border, including metropolitan New Orleans, with tropical storm conditions likely to begin Monday. That's tomorrow, you guys. It's actually today, right now. Preparation should be rushed to completion in those areas. Sally will continue to produce flash flooding across central and northern Florida and prolong existing minor river flooding across west central Florida through Monday. Everybody pray for Tim, because he's stuck out there right now. He just went on a vacation to Florida, and so he's there till Thursday. So hopefully he won't be in the middle of this, but it was raining when he got there today. And so he does have his computer and microphone with him. So if he is within, the area of getting stormed, potential, we will try to get Tim on the air live as well so that he can let us know what's happening in Florida. But they're expecting widespread significant flash flooding and minor to isolated major river flooding is likely across southeastern Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama through the middle of next week. Flooding impacts are expected to spread farther across the southeast U.S. throughout the week. It's not good, you guys. It does not look good. And they're saying there's a 90% chance of tropical storm force winds hitting that Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama coastline, and even parts of the top of the Florida Panhandle. That's not good. That's a really bad issue.
Wow, the devastation.
Tomorrow by 2 p.m., they're expecting tropical storm force winds by 2 p.m. tomorrow. You don't have much time to get ready. At all. Oh, and I'm going to go look at storm surge potential that they're forecasting right now. For like Baton Rouge, like for basically New Orleans proper and a few other places. There's one area on the Alabama coastline, but they're talking about at least 1 foot to 3 feet above ground, and there's one area that's 9 feet, and the leveed areas don't give you a flood risk. And that whole area is outside the leveed areas, they said most of it. So we're going to have to really watch this. This is going to be some real shit. Like I said, they're talking up to 20 inches in certain areas of rain. It's just crazy. And they have excessive rainfall outlooks. Until Hurricane Harvey, they didn't create excessive rainfall outlooks. So let's just put that into perspective real quick and think about that. Until Hurricane Harvey, there were no excessive rain outlooks. Now there is one. Tim is still. He's just been moving and getting back to his groove, and he was gonna try to do a show Saturday night, but then he couldn't log in, and I was on the way to my new place, and I didn't see a message, and so he didn't get to do a show Saturday. But he will be back. Like I said, but he's on vacation. But he did bring his computer with him, so he is able to do a show. So we will stay in contact with him tomorrow and find out what's going on. Because I think Florida is going to be more impacted than I personally thought just by now looking at it. And it'd be interesting to know where he went to know if he's going to have some issues. Because he just is in like a condo. He's not even in like a hotel or anything.
He's not just on his bike, is he?
No, he actually flew.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, no, I'd be so much more worried if he was, dude. I'd be like, oh my God, you better just fly home. But no,
Right,
he flew. But hopefully things aren't too bad where he can't get out either.
right.
Because sometimes hurricanes come, and especially if it's going to hit Florida, maybe the eye doesn't hit Florida, but that doesn't mean Florida can't get the brunt of the effects, of which then there are no flights out or flights get canceled, and then you get stuck.
Right.
So that would be my only thing. I'm a little worried about that for him. Because sometimes that's how you get stuck after one. So we'll keep our eyes on Tropical Storm Sally, which will eventually turn into Hurricane Sally later today, and expected to be a hurricane at landfall, not a major hurricane that we know of yet. So just a Cat 1 or 2, but Cat 1 or 2s can cause a lot of damage.
That is true. That is true.
I had somebody
Unfortunately,
earlier on Facebook trying to say, oh, don't worry about this storm. It's only going to be like a Cat 1 or 2, and that's nothing. And it's like, don't pay attention to damage by categories.
right,
Because by the time Harvey did all that damage, it wasn't even a hurricane at that point.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, though, guys, I need to go.
Yes. So do I.
I have to get sleep.
So do I.
So we did not cover the crystals I wanted to cover tonight, guys. We will do that next week. And we will also be talking about the Dr. Phil interviews.
Yeah.
So join us next week. We'll see you all then. Dare to be different, dare to be you, and dare to learn to love yourself unconditionally.
From the land of 10,000 lakes and from the highest desert valley in the great American Southwest. Good night, universe.